Good morning, Shabbat Shalom, and welcome. I'm Ross, and I'm live from the Athenaeum in Jackson, Louisiana, home of HOREB Institute for the Historical and Objective Research and Exploration of the Bible. I'm glad to be here with you today. Thank you for joining me for my class on I Spy Different Sources. Those of you who keep up with the annual cycle of Torah readings know that that is a very clever and subtle play on the Torah portion that we're going to be going through today, which deals primarily with spies. We're working through the Torah portions. We're currently in the book of Numbers in Bamidbar, and this particular Torah portion is Torah portion Shelach. Now, there's a lot of stuff in this particular Torah portion, but central to the narrative, central to this parsha, is all about the spies. Now, I'm using spy now, so if some of you say, well, technically the Hebrew word, we're getting there. But right now we're going to call them spies, and that's all, for the most part, that's what we find particularly in Numbers chapter 13 and 14. Here's what we know. Everybody knows the story. If I told you right now, and by the way, there will be an assignment at the end of this class, so if you normally don't pay close attention, you better listen up for this one. But listen to this. We all know the story, and if I ask you, please get out a piece of paper and write down the major narrative blocks, like what happens in the story of the spies. I jotted some down. Here's what we know. The Israelites are in the wilderness. 12 men are sent to spy out the land. They're away on this expedition for 40 days. They bring back a report. Now, here's what I think most of us understand the report is. It's a good land. It's a land of milk and honey. It's a fruitful land. In fact, one of the things that they do, the spies, that is, they bring back a cluster of grapes. I'm talking about a big cluster of grapes to show the bountifulness of this land. But they also have this to say about the land. It's very fortified. It is inhabited, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, with powerful, big, shall we say, giants. Sometimes I think some of you might even write down the sons of the Anakim or the Nephilim. But either way, some big people. And then when they come back, we would all recognize in the story, one of the main points is that there are, of the 12, 10 give a negative report, and only Joshua and Caleb bring back a positive assessment. Joshua and Caleb. People rebel, and they reject the positive assessment of Joshua and Caleb, and they side with those who have the negative report. And because of this, there is a 40-year sentence. A 40-year sentence because of their disbelief, because they didn't choose the good, they chose the bad. Now, I want to focus on this 40 years for just a minute, because when we talk about 40 years, this 40 years in the wilderness is a central theme of the wilderness tradition. Remember, we're talking about the wilderness tradition that begins all the way back in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 37. That's when the children of Israel step out. In Exodus 12, it says some 600,000. Later in the Pentateuch, we find out a more precise number, 603,550 males, but that doesn't include women, doesn't include children, doesn't even include the Levites. But we're talking about, I don't know, almost 3 million people leave and enter into what I call the wilderness tradition from the time they leave Egypt all the way until they enter into the land under Joshua. But that takes 40 years, or roughly 40 years, according to quite a few things in the biblical text. The 40 years associated with the wilderness tradition is found 14 times in the Pentateuch, 9 times in the, 14 times in the Tanakh, 9 times in the Pentateuch, And here are those verses. Now, we're not going to go through all of them. We're going to go through a couple in a minute. But I think you'll see these in the text, in the chat. Here are the verses that allude to, or mention specifically, I should say, the 40 years in the wilderness. Exodus chapter 16, verse 35. Now, in that one, it's where it's a description of the manna. It says that they ate this for the whole time, for 40 years in the wilderness, and they hadn't even been there but maybe a year. So a later writer tells us that. Then we get into the 40 years mentioned in this week's Torah portion, Numbers chapter 14, verse 33 and 34, Numbers chapter 32, verse 13, Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 3, chapter 2, verse 7, chapter 8, verses 2 and 4, Deuteronomy 29, 4, a couple more, just relax, almost done. Joshua 5, 6, Psalm 95, 10, and Nehemiah 9, 21. Now, there are two more, and we're going to look at those. The two more are from the book of Amos, Amos chapter 2 and verse 10, and Amos chapter 5 and verse 25. Now, these are the passages that I want to single out to talk about just briefly as we roll into this material today. Amos chapter 2 and verse 10 says the following, Also, I brought you up out of the land of Egypt and led you 40 years in the wilderness to possess the land of the Amorite. The land of the Amorite. Now, this is a whole study that we're going to have to get into one day. I'm going to put that in my notes because, you know, sometimes we talk about the land of Canaan and the 7 Canaanite nations, and sometimes the Amorite is mentioned in that. But there's this tradition that we see Amorite used in a more broad sense or as a owner of this particular land. A lot of people don't really pick up on this. Amos certainly understands that there's a 40-year wilderness tradition that ultimately leads to the possession of the land of the Amorite. Now look at Amos chapter 5 and verse 25. Just looking at the 40 years. And here Amos says this, Did you bring to me sacrifices and offerings the 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? Well, that's a good question. And we've talked about this before, but what do you think? Of course, the fundamentalist and the apologist among us would say, well, yes. All you have to do is read the Pentateuch, Ross, and you'll see lots and lots of sacrifices brought. Amos doesn't seem to know about that. Okay, now what I'm going to propose, and this is just for your notes, that because of the fact that we see the 40-year wilderness time frame associated with northern tradition, just keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that later. Just make a little note that this might be, maybe, a northern tradition, not so much a tradition that we find in the South. Prophets who primarily talk to Judah and only Judah, we don't see any mention of this. In fact, there's almost nothing outside the Pentateuch which associates 40 years with a sentence. In other words, the last thing that I talked about in our Everyone Knows This about the tribes and the spy narratives is that they're sentenced to 40 years. Now, outside of the Pentateuch, there's almost nothing about that. Okay. Now, I think the one that comes the closest, go with me to Joshua chapter 5, and verse 6. Here we go. Let me get there. I've got the old-fashioned Bible out today, one that actually has paper. Chapter 5, verse 6, For the Israelites traveled 40 years in the wilderness until all the nation, the warriors who came out of Egypt, perished, not having listened to the voice of the Lord. To them the Lord swore that he would not let them see the land that he had sworn to their ancestors to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. And it goes on, tells a little bit more of the tradition. But here it comes close. It basically says that they traveled 40 years. Doesn't really say that they're sentenced. However, it says that they didn't listen to the voice of the Lord God. Now, is that really what happened? Okay, well, we're going to talk about this. Now, I want you to look at another text, which some of you might have already thought of and said, hey, Ross, what about this one? Let's look at Joshua 14. Joshua 14, and I'm going to read, I love this text, by the way, 14, beginning in verse 6. Then the people of Judah came to Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him, he's talking to Joshua, you know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, in Kadesh Barnea concerning you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him an honest report. Now, it's interesting. I just want you to make a note of this. He's telling Joshua that he was sent. He doesn't say we were sent. He said he was sent. Just keep this in mind. And I brought him an honest report. Well, I thought it was both of them brought an honest report. But my companions who went up with me, not us, made the heart of the people melt. Yet I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, Surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever, because you've wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. And now, as you see, the Lord has kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years. How old is he? Do the math. 40 plus 45. He's 85 now. Since the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel was journeying through the wilderness, and here I am today, 85 years old. I'm still as strong today as I was on the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then for war, for going and coming. So now, give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke to you, or spoke on that day, for you heard on that day how the Anakim were there with great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out as the Lord said. Then Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, for an inheritance. So Hebron became the inheritance of Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, to this day, because he wholeheartedly followed the Lord, the God of Israel. Now the name of Hebron formerly was Kiriath Arba. This Arba was the greatest man among the Anakim, and the land had rest from war. Fascinating passage, boys and girls. Look at it closely on your own time. Again, who's he talking to? Does he say, hey, remember, you and I were the ones who brought back a positive report? Keep that in your notes. Let's think about that. Now, it doesn't say here, some might associate it with the word spy, because we're talking about spy. One of the things that I want you to notice is that here it's a different word. It's a different word when it talks about how he was this years old. He was 40 years old when he was sent to spy out. I forget how it puts it in here. Spy out the land. Well, this is not the same word as is used in our narrative blocks today. We're going to see that. Here, the root word is resh gimel lamed, and it means to go on foot. So, and sometimes that is the word for spying out the land, right? It's, you're on foot, you're being sort of sneaky, you're going in on foot and you're checking things out. So that's the word here. It's not the word we see in any of the other accounts, and that's why I wanted to highlight who's he referring to, him and Joshua, or just to himself? Now, although it is outside the scope of today's class, some scholars, I think we might have touched on this a little bit with Ezra and Jono in the recent Torah Pearls, that this absence of the spies, in other words, once you leave the Pentateuch, you just don't see a lot about the spies. some scholars suggest that that indicates a later interpolation, that the spy narrative is a later layer to the tradition. It is an ancient tradition, but it's put into the story a little bit later. Now, some of you might be saying, no way, but hang with me. We're not going to go much into that. I just want to touch on a few details as we go. Now, just put these in your notes. We're not going to go through these texts, but just so you can kind of follow up on this later. There's indication in the text once you leave, particularly Numbers 13, 14, maybe Deuteronomy 1, you get into another reason that they're in the wilderness for 40 years. And generally that is because they disobeyed a command to go in and take possession, right? God says, go in and take possession. They refused to follow that command. Here are a couple of verses you can look at on your own. Deuteronomy 9, verse 23. Nehemiah, chapter 9 and verse 13 and following. And then Psalm 95. All three of these seem to know about an extended period in the wilderness, but that is reflected as the result of just a disobedience not to go in and take possession. Now, you and I love the story of the spies, and that's the point of today's class. So we're not going to get into all that old scholarly stuff. We're going to focus on the text of the Bible. Everyone shouted, amen. Now, what I wanted to say as I begin to get into this is that we have the Torah portion that we're dealing with goes from Numbers chapter 13 to Numbers chapter 15 and verse 41. And it contains the word spy, right? It contains the word spy 13 times in 2 chapters. And I mean spy in English, but I'm really talking about the word underlying the English word spy. And that is the Hebrew word tav, vav, resh. It is typically, the form that I want to focus on is pronounced tour, just like you go on a tour to the Holy Land, right? A tour, it actually means, a better translation is going to be explore, scout, tour. It can mean spy, but if by spy you understand, it means to go and to look around. It means to go and to explore, like dig into and ascertain certain key points. It indicates that there's a purpose for the traveling. It's not just wandering around like aimlessly. There's a point to it, right? So you're exploring. You're going to certain places to ascertain certain information. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through several passages from the Torah portion just to show you where this word is used. So if you have your Torah tablet, Numbers, let's look at Numbers 13, verse 2 to begin with, and that's on page 100 in the Torah tablet. 100. Here we go. Send thou men that they may spy out the land of Canaan. All right, here's our word, tour, that they might spy out the land of Canaan. Go down to verse 16, which is on page 102. These are the names of the men that Moses sent to spy out the land, to tour the land. Verse 17, and Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan. All of these are our words. Look at verse 21, which is on page 104. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin unto Rehob, to the entrance of Hamath. Same word, verse 25. I just want to give you all of these so you have them. And they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days. Here we go. Here's our word again. How about verse 32, which is going to be on page 106? And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had spied out unto the children of Israel. See that? And let's keep going. The land through which we have gone to spy it out. Here, this verse has it mentioned twice. Now go to chapter 14, verse 6, which is on page 108. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were of them that spied out the land, rent their clothes. Look at verse 7. And they spake unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to spy it out is an exceeding good land. Verse 34. I just want you to have all of them. That way somebody doesn't say, well, he missed one. Verse 34 begins at the bottom of page 112 in the Torah tablet. After the number of the days in which ye spied out the land, even 40 days, for every day a year, shall ye bear your iniquities even 40 years, and you shall know my alienation, says God. Verse 36, almost done. And the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up an evil report against the land, even those men that did bring up an evil report of the land died by the plague before Jehovah. And then verse 38, but Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh remained alive of those that went to spy out the land. That's it. That's it. That is every occurrence of the word spy. We're talking about spies today. That's it. Now, I like to use the word explore, but I've retained the word spy a lot in my teaching today because it's just ingrained. We talk about the 12 spies. We know about the spy narrative. But just understand that these are scouts. This is a way to understand it. They're scouting out the land. They're exploring the land. But I really like explore, and you'll see why as I work through. Again, I like it more than wonder because some translations and some commentaries will include the word wonder in the word tour. But I've looked at every ancient occurrence I can find in biblical literature anyway, and I don't see anywhere where wander, W-A-N-D-E-R, works. And I tell you why, because wander means to aimlessly go about without purpose. Whereas explore, again, means that there is an aim or a purpose to the exploration. Now, I'm an explorer, and I hope that you're an explorer. I mean, some of us have actually explored these wildernesses, but there's another kind of exploring that you can do according to the Bible right where you sit in your home. Let me give you a couple of examples. Go with me to Ecclesiastes. We're going to look at Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 13. And we're going to look there first, and there are a couple of other passages in Ecclesiastes that I want to go to. Let me get there. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 13 first. And it says, if I can ever get to it, here we go. Now, 1:13. Let me go to verse 12. I, the teacher, when king over Israel and Jerusalem, applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under the heaven. To search out, to seek and to search out. By the way, search out by wisdom is our word tour. To look around in the text, to search out a matter. You see, by wisdom. This is the same word. And I think that is interesting. Look at chapter 2, verse 3. I searched with my mind how to cheer my body with wine. I don't do that anymore, but I have in the past. My mind still guiding me with wisdom and how to lay hold on folly until I might see what was good for mortals to do under heaven during the days of their life. By the way, the writer of this can promote the consumption of alcohol, but he's got sort of a dismal look on the world, right? Read Ecclesiastes, some beautiful wisdom, but at the same time, it's like I always read it with an Eeyore voice. You know who Eeyore is? The donkey on Winnie the Pooh. Woe is me, everything is bad, it doesn't matter, everybody dies, and, that kind of stuff. But read it like that on your own. Look at chapter 7, chapter 7 and verse 25. I apologize for that if I offended anybody. I turned my mind to know and to search out and to seek wisdom in the sum of things, and to know that wickedness is folly and that foolishness is madness. And he goes on into other things that are foolish and folly. But he turned his mind to search out and seek wisdom. It's a wisdom tour. And what I like to do, when I say in my signature block, I'm an author, an explorer, a researcher, and teacher, exploring sometimes means the actual places, on foot. Take a plane to go see it, walk around in the desert, that kind of exploring. But at times it means to explore right here. And one of the things that I want you to know is that I'm going to lead you today on a Torah tour, a Torah exploration, a Pentateuch, deep look into the Pentateuch. We're going to actually go exploring. You are spies? All right, let's see what we can find out. So the Torah portion, Shelach, again, begins in Numbers chapter 13, and it runs to the end of Numbers chapter 15. What I want you to see is something that few people really notice, and that is because behind the English, there are words in Hebrew that aren't always translated the same. Like I read through 13 references in Numbers 13 and 14 where it was spy, 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 over and over, spy. And I think that you get the point that every time we see the word tour, that it's going to be translated spy. But it's not. And this is why it's important to study the original languages of these ancient texts. So what I want to do is I want you to look with me. Consider this. We're going to read Numbers 15 beginning in verse 37, and that is on page 124. And by the way, the reason we're going to look here is because this is the end of the Torah portion, and you're going to see something with the use of this word. Here we go, verse 37. And Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them that they make them fringes in the borders of their garments throughout their generations, and that they put upon the fringe of each border a cord of blue. And it shall be unto you for a fringe, that you may look upon it, and remember all the commandments of Jehovah, and do them, and that ye follow not after your own heart and your own eyes, after which ye used to play the harlot, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God. I am Jehovah your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Jehovah your God. Verse 37 through 41, this section is talking about tzitzit, the fringes. It's also mentioned in Deuteronomy 22. But here, something interesting. This closes out Torah portion Shelach. Now, why is it interesting? Why am I bringing this up? Is because notice where it says that ye follow not after your own heart and your own eyes. The Hebrew there is the same word to tour. In fact, it says lo taturu, meaning no, don't tour after your own eyes in lust. And the reader, a listener, a hearer who heard this read in the ancient Hebrew storytelling would say, oh, I get it. I get it. The spies, you see, there were spies, they were touring, they were tour, over and over and over. They see it, they hear it. And then all of a sudden, the story ends, and the ancient preacher would say, and so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let not your eyes tour after the lust of your heart. You see the power in that? It's fresh on their mind. They just heard about all the mistakes that these tourists, these spies made because they trusted after their eyes. They saw giants in the land. They said, not only did they see giants, you'll hear it in a moment, they actually said, we were in their eyes as grasshoppers. So they even imagined that they could not only see through their own eyes, but they imagined they were seeing themselves as little through the eyes of their enemies. They were already beat. It's a good lesson. Teach your kids. Don't ever, ever see yourself as small or insignificant. You don't know what other people see. Be big when you walk in a room. Be the giant. Anyway, ask Seth if that works. I don't know. Now, consider this. Got a couple of other verses I want you to look at. Look at Numbers chapter 10, verse 33. It's on page 88 of the Torah tablet. 88 of the Torah tablet. Numbers 10:33. Here we go. And they set forward from the mount of Jehovah 3 days' journey, and the ark of the covenant of Jehovah went before them 3 days' journey to seek out a resting place for them. Now, why am I reading that? Because you see, this is why it's good to have a Torah tablet. You see where it says to seek out a resting place for them? Right across from that, on that line, I want you to write, to seek out in Hebrew is tur. In other words, God has already gone before them to spy out, if we're going to use the word spy, to tour out a resting place for them. So do we need to do the touring, or did God already do it? You see, this is the point. An ancient listener, someone who heard this, someone who read this in the Hebrew, would know that this is connected. Oh, I get it. So God goes before vis-a-vis the Ark of the Covenant, and he's touring out the land. He's God's the spy here. Now, look with me at Deuteronomy. I have to change your Torah tablets. Go to Deuteronomy 1, verse 30 through 33. That's on page 8. Deuteronomy 1:30. Jehovah your God, who goeth before you, he will fight for you, according to all he did for you in Egypt before your eyes, and in the wilderness where thou hast seen how that Jehovah your God bare thee as a man doth bear his son, and all the way that ye went until ye came unto this place. Yet in this thing you did not believe Jehovah your God, who went before you in the way to seek you out a place to pitch your tents in fire by night, to show you by what way you should go, and in the cloud by day. If you were guessing, you didn't have Hebrew experience, or you didn't know how to read Hebrew, what do you think is actually significant here? If you have a Torah tablet, on that line right across from verse 33 where it says to seek you out a place to pitch your tents, that's our word. You see, God, according to these passages, God is seeking out, he's spying out a place for the children of Israel, and that is one of the main points of this particular story. Now I want you to look at a prophetic text with me. This is from the book of Ezekiel. We're going to look at Ezekiel chapter 20. And I want to read verse 5 and 6, Ezekiel 20, verse 5 and 6. And say unto them, thus says the Lord God, on the day when I chose Israel, I swore to the offspring of the house of Jacob, making myself known to them in the land of Egypt. I swore to them, saying, I am the Lord your God. On that day I swore to them that I would bring them out of the land of Egypt into a land that I had searched out for them, a land flowing with milk and honey, the most glorious of all lands. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you three witnesses, three pieces of evidence that indicate, by the way, that where God says he searched it out, that's our word, spy, that God is the one who had already done this. Now, you might say, yeah, but I mean, we need guys to go look too, because that's going to help. We'll see if it helps. So the story of the 12 spies is presented, get ready, this is our tour begins now. There are two places in the Pentateuch that tell the story of the 12 spies. And they are Numbers and Deuteronomy. Both Numbers and Deuteronomy have a version of this. Numbers 13 and 14 tell a story. This is what I've presented in the past. And Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 22 through 45 tells what I've presented as another version. You follow me so far? So what I've presented in the past, in fact, even last year, was that you have two versions of the spy story, and they don't always agree. And I know some might say, yeah, they probably do. No, they don't at all. You have a story, a version of the story in Numbers 13, 14. You have a version of the story in Deuteronomy 1, verse 22 through 45. And in the past, I put those side by side, and I showed that they don't agree on all the details. You can dismiss that if you'd like. Now, again, I proposed previously that the reason is because we have two different versions of the story. I mean, they share many of the same elements. Let's look at a table so that you can see the similarities. This is very important. By the way, this is a beautiful table. I have to look at mine, which is drawn by hand. Let me just look how pretty that is. You have a better table than I do. Okay, so notice on the left, we've got the narrative block, meaning this is what each of the stories that I'm going to compare contain. Narrative block is on the left, and then the middle column is where that narrative block finds itself, or we find it in the book of Numbers. And then on the right-hand side, where we find it in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay, so men from each tribe are sent to spy out. Do we have that in Numbers? Yep, Numbers 13, too. How about Deuteronomy? You betcha, 122 and 23. Mention of going into the hill country. You got that in Numbers? Sure do. Numbers 13, verse 17 in Deuteronomy? Yes, sir, 124. How about reaching a place called Eshcol? Yep, Numbers 13:23, Deuteronomy 1:24. They get produce. They gather some produce, right? Yeah, that's in chapter 13, verse 23 in Numbers, and chapter 1, verse 25 of Deuteronomy. They bring back a report. Yep, that's there. That's in Numbers in chapter 13, verse 23, and it's in Deuteronomy 1, verse 25. How about big people? I put big people. I could put giants, but I don't know. I don't know why I put big people. Maybe it's some part of our culture where we're trying to be more, I don't know, sensitive. You know, like Jono is a big people, right? Big people. Verse 28, chapter 13, verse 28, Deuteronomy 1, verse 28. Both of them talk about big people. And then what about God's oath? Yep. God's oath is found in Numbers 14, 21 through 23, and Deuteronomy 34 through 35. Chapter 1, verse 34, 35. And then Caleb is singled out. Now, why don't I say Joshua? I don't know. Interesting. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But Caleb is singled out in both Numbers, chapter 13, verse 24, and Deuteronomy, chapter 1, verse 36. Now, there are plenty of differences too, but take in this chart for just a moment. And we'll upload these in case, you want to look at these or put these in your Bible. I think it's a good idea. Now, this is sort of my understanding up until I really dug in this time through. I didn't get into any of this on the Torah Pearls episode, really. But after further study, everybody get ready, I've learned that there are not two different spy narratives after all. Wow, everybody ready? Are you relieved? Not two spy narratives after all. And the fundamentalist and the apologist said, yes. There are three. And not two stories that have been preserved for us into our Bible today. There are actually three versions, and I want you to see those three versions now. I'm going to show you a chart, and you'll be able to see this very plainly. Now, I'm going to present this. Now, your job is going to be to listen. We're going to read these stories in a moment, and you're going to have to say, are they really 3 stories? Are they maybe 2 stories? Or is this stuff crazy and every biblical scholar in the world has lost his mind and this is really just one story? And yeah, each version of it, or these texts tell little different details, alternative facts. But you're going to answer that question. So here we go. If you accept, you might not yet, if you accept that there is a version that scholars call P, here's what P's story of the spies. Could it be separated out and read separately? Numbers chapter 13, verses 1 through 16, verse 25 through 26, verse 32, chapter 14, verses 1 through 3, verses 5 through 10, verse 26 through 38. That is going to be presented to you in a moment as the version of the story of the spies according to P. J. Now, by the way, if you have the Torah tablets, these are indicated in the text. You'll see it'll say J, it'll say P. All I'm doing today is I'm separating these sources out, something I didn't do last year. J's version of the story of the spies is Numbers chapter 13, verse 17b through verse 24, verse 27 through 31, verse 33, chapter 14, verse 4, and verses 11 through 24. And then, of course, D, I'm just generically saying D. Actually, there are different layers within D. We'll get to that, I promise you. But in D, let's just say chapter 1, verse 19 through 39. By the way, I've separated these out based on the text from the Torah tablets, and I uploaded that file, the 3 versions, I call it the 3 narrative sources, on the spies on my academia page. And if you look in the description of this video that you're watching right now, you're going to see a link right after the description of the video. It's going to say the academia link, and you click that, and you can look at these. You don't need them right now. You can get them now if you want, but you can study them on your own. So there you have it. I'm going to propose to you today that we don't have just a story of the spies, which may or may not date back to the earliest strata of the storytelling in ancient Israel. It could be added later. But I'm going to suggest that there are 3 stories which have come down to us, or 3 versions of the story of the spies. So we're going to begin. I'm going to read you. Now, this is, some of you might say, oh, good Lord, we're going to read these. Yep, we're going to read them, because I want you to hear the ancient story, 3 versions. And we're going to start with the story according to P. Start with the story according to P. Now, if you don't have a Torah tablet and you don't want to get one, you want to do this in your own Bible, we've recorded the verses. You're going to see them, Numbers chapter 13, 1 through 16, and so forth. This is P's version, according to the documentary hypothesis, of the spy story. Now, let me tell you this. In separating the sources, I didn't add a single word. I didn't add anything. I didn't add a syllable. I didn't take one away. I simply pulled out what scholars believe represents the story according to P, and here it is. It begins on page 100 in the Torah tablet. And Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men that they may spy out the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall you send a man, every one a prince among them. And Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the commandment of Jehovah, all of them men who were heads of the children of Israel. And these were their names: of the tribe of Reuben, Shemua the son of Zakur; of the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat the son of Hori; of the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Yefuneh; of the tribe of Issachar, Egal the son of Joseph; of the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea the son of Nun; of the tribe of Benjamin, Palti the son of Raphu; of the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel the son of Sodi; of the tribe of Joseph, namely, of the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi the son of Susi, of the tribe of Dan, Amiel the son of Gamali, of the tribe of Asher, Sether the son of Michael, of the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi the son of Vophsi, of the tribe of Gad, Guel the son of Maki. These are the names of the men that Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called the son of Nun Joshua. By the way, in your notes, I want you to put Deuteronomy 32, verse 44, and remind me in the chat after the class. We'll talk about that. Verse 25, and they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days, and they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and to all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had spied out unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that eats up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it were men of great stature. And all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept up that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the children, the whole congregation, said unto them, would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in this wilderness. And wherefore doth Jehovah bring us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will be a prey. Were it not better for us to return unto Egypt? Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, who were of them that spied out the land, rent their clothes. They spake unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to spy it out is an exceeding good land. If Jehovah delight in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it unto us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only rebel not against Jehovah, neither fear ye the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Their defense is removed from over them, and Jehovah is with us, fear them not. But all the congregation bade stone them with stones. The glory of Jehovah appeared in the tent of meeting unto all the children of Israel. And Jehovah spoke unto Moses and Aaron, saying, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation that murmur against me? I've heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, which they murmur against me. Say unto them, as I live, saith Jehovah, surely as ye have spoken in mine ears, so will I do to you. Your dead bodies shall fall in this wilderness, and all that were numbered of you, according to your whole number, from 20 years old and upward, that have murmured against me, surely they shall not come into the land concerning which I swear that I would make you dwell therein, save Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. But your little ones that you said should be a prey, them will I bring in, and they shall know the land which you've rejected. But as for you, your dead bodies shall fall in this wilderness. Your children shall be wanderers in the wilderness 40 years, shall bear your whoredoms, until your dead bodies be consumed in the wilderness. And after the number of the days in which ye spied out the land, even 40 days, for every day a year, shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, you shall know my alienation. I, Jehovah, have spoken. Surely this will I do unto all this evil generation that are gathered together against me. In this wilderness they shall be consumed, and there they shall die. And the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation to murmur against him by bringing up an evil report against the land, even those men that did bring up an evil report of the land died by the plague before Jehovah. But Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh remained alive of those that went to spy out the land. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's P. All right. Now, again, I didn't cut anything out. I didn't add anything, meaning as soon as I said this is P, pull it in. This is J, take it and put it in J. We're going to read J next. Now, you remember a while back when I proposed that we had two different flood stories. We did the same thing there with different sources. This is to show something that I think is quite compelling in terms of what the documentary hypothesis has. So now we're going to do the story according to J. It's about that length. And so you'll see the story according to J. And here are the verses. It begins in Numbers chapter 13, verse 17b, okay? Numbers chapter 13, verse 17b. And he, and Moses, That's just clarity. And he said unto them, get you up this way, by the south, and go up into the hill country, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwell therein, whether they're strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, whether it's good or bad, what cities they are that they dwell in, whether in camps or strongholds, and what the land is, whether it's fat or lean, whether there's wood therein or not. Be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin unto Rehob, to the entrance of Hamad. And they went up by the south and came to Hebron, and Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were there. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zon in Egypt. And they came into the valley of Eshcol, and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes. And they bare it upon a staff between two. They brought also the pomegranates and the figs. By the way, we know that this would be in the summer because the summer fruits, first ripe fruits are in the summer. We'll talk about that in the after discussion. Verse 24, that place was called the valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the children of Israel cut down from thence. And they told him and said, we came unto the land whither thou sent us, and surely it flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit thereof. Howbeit, the people that dwell in the land are strong, the cities are fortified and very great, and moreover we saw the children of Anak there. Amalek dwells in the land of the south, the Hittite, the Jebusite, the Amorite dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanite dwelleth by the sea, and along by the side of the Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses, and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we're all well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, we're not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. That's kind of my sissy voice. Verse 33, and there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come of the Nephilim, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, so we were in their sight. Chapter 14, verse 4, and they said unto one another, let us make a captain, and let us return to Egypt. And Jehovah said unto Moses, how long will this people despise me? And how long will they not believe in me for all the signs which I've wrought among them? I will smite them with pestilence and disinherit them, and make of thee a nation greater and mightier than they. And Moses said unto Jehovah, then the Egyptians will hear it. For thou broughtest up this people in thy might from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They've heard that thou, Jehovah, are in the midst of this people. For thou, Jehovah, art seen face to face, and thy cloud standeth over them. And thou goest before them in a pillar of cloud by day, and in the pillar of fire by night. Now, if thou wilt kill this people as one man, then the nations which have heard the fame of thee will speak, saying, because Jehovah was not able to bring this people into the land which he swore unto them, therefore he's slain them in the wilderness. And now I pray thee, let the power of the Lord be great according as thou hast spoken, saying, Jehovah is slow to anger, abundant in loving kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generation. Pardon, I pray thee, the iniquity of this people according to the greatness of thy loving kindness, and according as thou hast forgiven this people from Egypt even until now. And Jehovah said, I have pardoned according to thy word. But in very deed, as I live, and as the earth shall be filled with the glory of Jehovah, because all those men that have seen my glory and my signs which I've wrought in Egypt and in the wilderness, yet have tempted me these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice, surely they shall not see the land which I swear unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that despise me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he had another spirit with him and had followed me fully, him will I bring into the land whereinto he went, and his seed shall possess it. Now just put a note at the end of Jay's version where it only mentions Caleb. Put a note to read again Joshua 14 that we read earlier in the class that gave Caleb's testimony about how he was the one. And he's talking to Joshua. Doesn't say we. One last version, and it's short. One last version, and this is Deuteronomy's version, and it begins in chapter 1, verse 22, which is going to be on page 6 in the Torah tablet, Deuteronomy's version, the spy story according to D. And here we go. And ye, verse 22, came near unto me, every one of you, and said, let us send men before us, that they might search the land for us, and bring us word again of the way by which we must go up, and the cities unto which we shall come. And the thing pleased me well. And I took 12 men of you, one man for every tribe, and they returned and went up into the hill country, and came unto the valley of Eshcol, and spied it out. They took of the fruit of the land in their hands, and brought it down unto us, and brought us word again, and said, it is a good land which Jehovah our God gives unto us. Yet ye would not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of Jehovah your God. And you murmured in your tents, and said, because Jehovah hated us, he hath brought us forth out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Whither are we going up? Our brethren have made our heart to melt, saying, the people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and fortified up to heaven. And moreover, we've seen the sons of the Anakim there. And I said to you, dread not, neither be afraid of them. Jehovah your God, who goes before you, he will fight for you according to all that he did for you in Egypt before their eyes, your eyes. And in the wilderness, where thou hast seen how that Jehovah thy God bare thee as a man doth bear his son, and all the way that ye went until ye came unto this place. Yet in this thing you did not believe Jehovah your God, who went before you in the way to seek out a place to pitch your tents in fire by night, to show you by what way you should go, and in the cloud by day. And Jehovah heard the voice of your words, and was wroth, and sware, saying, surely there shall not come one of these men of this evil generation to see the good land which I swear to give unto your fathers, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it, and to him will I give the land that he hath trodden upon, and to his children, because he's wholly followed Jehovah. Also, Jehovah was angry with me for your sake, saying, you shall not go in thither. Remind me, we're going to talk about why was Moses not allowed? Was it something he did, or was it their fault, like it says here? Joshua, the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall go in there. Encourage thou him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit it. Moreover, your little ones that you said would be a prey, and your children that this day have no knowledge of good or evil, they shall go in thither, and unto them will I give it, and they shall possess it. That is the spy story according to D. Interesting. Now, let me ask you this. Are there really 3 different versions of the spy story? Is there really a version that we could call P, or call it what you want, but that version that is typically referred to as the version known as P? Is there a version of J? And does Deuteronomy contain even a different version? Again, in the link of this video is a link to a PDF where you can read these separate accounts on your own and study them, and I encourage you to do that. Your assignment, should you accept it, and by the way, I know that that was a lengthy process for me to read 3 full stories, but one of the main things I wanted to do was set us up for a very good and engaging dialogue, a session on Zoom after this. Some of you will be watching on YouTube. And here's what I want you to do, either for the discussion or even in your own time, is to read through each of these stories as I've separated them out, P, J, and Deuteronomy. And I want you to ask a couple of questions. Who initiated the mission of the spies? Does God say send spies? Does Moses say it was the people's idea? Whose idea was it anyway? What about the content of the report? If you look across the 3 stories, take notes. What did they say? What about the description of the rebellion? Make notes. What's the description of the rebellion of the people in P? in J, and in D? How about the response of the leaders in P, in J, in D? How about the divine response or the divine reaction? How does God respond in each of these stories? And which heroes are highlighted? Is it Joshua? Is it Caleb? Or is it both? Here's some other things that I want you to think about. What theological concerns are emphasized in each of the sources? Which theological concerns stand out? Here's a question for you. Why does the version in Deuteronomy give a different initiator for the spy story than the one in Numbers? And second, or the ones in Numbers? And then what would be the cause or reason for Deuteronomy lacking a list of the tribes, and there's no mention of the Nephilim in there? How does the character of God change in each of these stories? Is it presented as the same, or is it presented differently? Well, those are things that you get to solve, and we'll work together on some of them. Meet me in about 15 minutes for a discussion if you're live with me today. Now, the link for the after-class discussion on YouTube is in the description of this video, but you really don't have to do anything because you'll probably magically be pulled into that YouTube's channel. If, however, you're a member of the Yakat and you support us, we thank you very much. Your support makes all of this possible. You join me in the Zoom call, and I'll meet you there a little bit early. So the rest of you, just hang tight. I'm going to meet with the Zoom group pretty quick, and then we'll bring the rest of you in. Look forward to a great discussion. Thanks for hearing me out. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.